Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Hello one, hello all, and welcome to the season finale of the Südspeed Sportscar Series. Tonight, we head to the land down under in Victoria to the gloriously high-speed Phillip Island circuit. It's Sebastian Vandel versus Brandon Groach in a shootout tonight for the outright championship. One race and just 26 points separating them. I am Bo Albert, and alongside me once more is Mr. Southpaw racer Reese Gardner in the commentator's booth, with Jay Kennedy kicking things off in the production trailer for us. Reese, it's great for us to be racing in Australia for the season finale here in the Südspeed Sportscar Series, but despite how many times we've raced at Phillip Island, it still has a tendency to throw up the odd little curveball.
Absolutely it does, Bo. I'm so glad that we're at Phillip Island for the final race of what has been, frankly, a fantastic season of this new league. I've certainly been happy to be a part of the team throughout this season, and what a track to finish at, Phillip Island. It's so smooth, fast, and flowing. I think it's almost a perfect track for these LMP3 cars. There's enough of a high-speed nature to it that you can certainly make use of the slipstream and go for some big dives at the slower corners like Miller and MG, but also plenty of quick corners to show just how much downforce these cars produce.
Absolutely, I can't wait to see these cars fly through Doan Corner. It's going to be great to see, as well as some other very fast corners such as Hayshed and Lukey Heights are going to be corners in particular to keep an eye out for. Going to be some great racing in the draft tonight, so we're going to have plenty of action over our one race for the event, so that'll be exciting to keep an eye on around this glorious circuit. As you can see, currently 15 minutes of qualifying is already underway, and the lap times are very, very close. But for the race tonight, we're looking at a likelihood of 2 pit stops, so strategy is going to be a huge factor. It's the same format that we saw at the Red Bull Ring, and what we saw there, Reese, was fuel saving was key.
It absolutely was, but there's one big difference between the Red Bull Ring and this circuit. I think Phillip Island has a vastly greater proportion of its lap on full throttle, so who knows, maybe fuel saving might not be the winning strategy here. It's still quite up in the air, but we will have to wait and see. I think at the very least a couple of safety cars, if they eventuate, might change that.
Yep, absolutely. Safety cars are something we always have to keep an eye on in the Südspeed Sportscar Series. Thankfully, we've barely seen any of them because the racing has been very close, very competitive throughout. And as it has been since the very start of round number 1 at Donington so many weeks ago, it's Sebastian Vandel leading the championship. It has been what we've called the Sebastian Vandel show in this series, but were we calling it just a little too early? The gap between first and second after drop rounds are accounted for is just 26 points. Brandon Groach is not to be counted out at any point because he is very much in this hunt, and just a little bit of a spoiler for qualifying, he's currently ahead in the standings in qualifying of Vandel. So Brandon Groach is ready to put up a fight here, Reese.
Yeah, exactly. And even taking the pole position points out of this, there is quite a few scenarios in which Groach can potentially win this championship. If Groach wins, Vandel needs to finish third or worse. If Groach is second, Vandel fifth or worst. If Vandel finishes fourth or above, though, he wins by 1 point. So that's the basic scenario. There's quite a few other potential scenarios that we'll go into at later points, but all you need to know is it's going to be really close between these two at the top.
It absolutely is, and I cannot wait to watch the points tracker the entire way through the night. We do have life points enabled, so Jay Kennedy will be able to keep you updated with everything that's happening, with every little overtake, every passing, and every change of position as well. It's going to be great to see as we take a look at our qualifying standings right now, and it's the 69 car of Peter Smith currently leading the way by a massive margin of 0.5 of a second, and then the gaps get smaller and smaller and smaller until we include our top 8 cars within 0.3 of a second.
Yeah, that is some incredible running that these guys are doing here at Phillip Island, on board with Brandon Groach at the moment as he tries to chase down now Sebastian Vandel at the top of the standings. Groach currently following behind Owen Pyra and could potentially get a little slipstream off him down the front stretch. Might be just enough within the margin, and yep, we'll get a little dab of slipstream there. What's this lap going to be? 1:23.6, straight to the top.
Oh, this is so good. It's only qualifying, and already it is the battle royale between the 22 and the 58. Vandel laid down the gauntlet, and Groach was more than ready for the challenge. Now, Vandel, what do you have? How do you respond? We take a look at the webcam, and that is nothing but sheer focus as the car wriggles over the top of the hill there. Now plunge yourself down several feet into a slow speed hairpin. Avoid the inside front locking. Try and slowly put the power on. Yes, there's traction control in this car, but believe me, the rear still wants to move around, and then just tighten your belts. Fly the car through this very long left-hander, take the path of least resistance to the line, and cross the start-finish line to record a time that is not quite quick enough. Still good enough for second, or still keeps him in his position. It still would have been good enough for his current spot, but Vandel just lacking about 1/10 of a second on that time around. What can he do next time by?
Yeah, what can Dean Power do as well in 10th spot right now, and only 0.8 off that pole position time. That's amazing, the gaps between the top 3. There's only 1/100th of a second between Groach and Vandel at the moment. This is exactly the kind of championship finale I was looking for. Dean Power, though, through the final corner, and we'll see what time he records. Has to beat a 1:24.4, and if he can gain 0.3, it'll put him round in the vicinity of Daniel Finney. 1:24.9, unfortunately for him, not quite getting up to it. The track temperature is nice and cool as well, Bo. It's only 22 degrees Celsius, so I reckon we'll be seeing some really fast laps here right at the end of the session once the tyres are up to temp.
Yep, absolutely. And just a little note as well, of course, because we are only having a single race tonight, the drivers are allowed to complete their laps as long as they start it before the countdown has finished. So, of course, normally the drivers get cut off when the timer ends. For this round, you will be able to finish a lap, which is great news for someone like Owen Pyra, who I've got to say did a fantastic job in practice, not necessarily because of his lap time, but more contending with a fluffy kitty cat really wanting some pets just moments before qualifying, but doesn't seem to have affected him all too much, currently just outside the top 10, as he's currently standing on a 24.8, just needs about 0.2 of a second to overhaul the next driver in line, which is David Turnbull.
Absolutely. Well, let's see what he can do. I also noticed something pretty drastic happen out of MG a few moments ago. Jacques Swanpole and Sebastian Vandel came together. Swanpole with a spin. He improves, does Owen Pyra, by only a little bit, so no position gain for him. But crucially, Vandel just re-emerging from the pit lane now with less than a minute to go in the session. He's not going to be able to get another lap in.
No, he's not, and even if he did, the tyres would not be up to temperature, but it's not too much of a concern either, because Brandon Groach, of course, is in the pits as well, so no change for either of them. But I guess the big storyline here is if nobody can knock them off the top step of the leaderboards in qualifying right now, that is going to be some bonus points towards Brandon Groach for the championship. Cam Edwards decides to bail on that lap. He's not feeling it's going to be an improvement this time around, so he elects to come on in. I think Daniel Finney might be on a lap right now as he works his way into the final hairpin and tries to get the power out in the bean machine. It's been a bit of a favorite for us here in the commentary booth. Yeah. Whether you like beans or not, that is up to you. I'm personally not a fan, but I'm definitely a fan of Daniel Finney. He's had some great drives this season, and out of the final corner, we'll see what he can record. Currently sitting in 9th place on a 24.1. He'll cross the line and almost beats it. Stands at a 24.2.
Well, there we go. Last few drivers to come across the line. Dean Powell being one of them. I can see Mark Foster out there as well. Let's see if these two will be able to improve on 10th and 15th place. Inverse, respectively. Powell across the line behind Foster. Foster sets a 25.3, and Powell, well, that's going to be an improvement up to 9th spot with that time. Nicely done right in the dying moments of the session.
Yep, absolutely. So that is qualifying done and dusted for the 7th and final time in the Südspeed Sportscar Series. We've seen plenty of cool results across the season. We've seen a number of different pole sitters, I believe 3 so far, with the likes of Vardell, Groach, and Dylan Walker as well. And unless I'm forgetting somebody else, maybe Peter Smith maybe snuck one in there as well. But nonetheless, our final qualifying session is done, and 5 critical points goes to the way of Brandon Groach. So we've been hyping up this 26-point gap. Well, we can now start hyping up a 21-point gap, and just a little bit more pressure rests on the shoulders of Sebastian Vandel. And there's a bit of pressure on you guys as the viewers as well, because time is running out to use the Südspeed.com Black Friday discount. All you have to do is use the code BLACK35 for 35% off all orders. But Reese, that one's ending on the 30th of November.
Yeah, so get your orders in very shortly. It's a fantastic deal for Südspeed gloves. We both have a pair, Bo, and we're both very happy with them indeed. 35% off until the 30th of November. Make sure to hit that by the time you get to the 30th of November. This is going to be a very interesting session here, Bo. We've been sent some updated championship scenarios, but we should go through the grid before we discuss that.
Yep, absolutely, as the drivers will embark on a 5-minute warm-up, but we'll take you through our grid, which all starts with Brandon Groach on pole position, a critical one and probably the most important of the entire season. Lining up alongside him, well, it's his title protagonist, Sebastian Vandel, in that 58. Peter Smith has had some great qualifying efforts this season. He kicks things off from position number 3, with Vinnie Nguyen starting on the 2nd row of the grid as well. Another great drive, who kicks things off ahead of Eric Fenson. One of course, the 2 Fenson brothers there. A great result from Eric there in the top 5, with Dylan Walker, who dominated last time out, only managing 6th place. Will he be able to make his way through the field? If he is, he's got to hold off the likes of John Bradshaw, who's had plenty of pace this season. We've seen him record a podium or 2 so far already. Can he get one in the final round of the season as he lines up alongside the other Fenson brother, Henry? Dean Powell kicks things off from position number 9 and the 5th row of the grid in the 999. So 999 in P9, you love to see it. And he starts things off ahead of Daniel Finney in the Bean Machine.
David Turnbull in car 702 is going to line up in 11th place alongside Owen Pyra. Then we have Sean Bonici starting lucky 13th alongside Dean Hunt, who lines up the number 47 Frog Leap machine. Then we have Mark Foster and Samuel Lambert on the 8th row of the grid. The last 2 drivers to set times in qualifying are Andrew Proctor and Jacques Swanpole in 17th and 18th. And then rounding out our field, we have Cam Edwards and Mark Hallowell. Now, Bo, this is going to be a very interesting sequence of events that may come out here from Phillip Island. These are the championship scenarios. If Groach wins, championship is done in the favor of him. If Groach comes 2nd, Vandel must finish 4th or above. If Groach comes 3rd, In order for Grotch to win the championship, Vandel must come 6th or worse. If Grotch is 4th, Vandel must be 7th or worse. If Grotch comes 5th, Vandel must be 9th or worse, and so on and so forth. So we'll keep an eye on those positions as we go through this 1 hour race.
Oh, this is incredible. Of course, after round 2 of the championship, we're already saying, can anybody catch Sebastian Vandel? He was the dominant force. He was winning it all, getting all the pole positions and race wins as well. It was great to see the performance from him, but slowly but surely, the drivers have come clawing back, trying to chase him down, and we go into the final round of the sun setting here at Phillip Island, and that man on screen is in a fight. Winner takes all. If either of those two win this race, they take the championship as well. It is going to be so cool to see, and better yet, they start mono-e-mono on the front row of the grid. Hopefully we don't get 2021 Abu Dhabi finish vibes, but very much the scene is set for an equally thrilling event. But there is so much that can happen in this race. We're talking 2 pit stops. We're talking in the excess of 40 laps here at Phillip Island race. So we've got another factor in there as well, in the form of this is almost a mini endurance race. Fatigue is going to play a factor.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And for David Turnbull as well, it's going to be a bit of a physical trial for him. He got an injury playing cricket to his right thumb and can't grip the wheel, so he's pretty much driving one-handed tonight. Well, David, if you need any assistance on how to sim race with one hand, I am your guy.
Race has done just a couple of laps with one hand over the years and proven that, hey, you might only have one hand, but nonetheless, the lap times are crazy fast. So hopefully David Turnbull can provide some pretty cool racing here, as well as Owen Pyra tries to sneak a couple cheeky positions in the text chat as well. I respect the effort, but check out the nerves on the face of Vandel. He knows there's a bit of pressure on those shoulders tonight. What can he do in that Altus Australia machine? And I've got to say, Simon Feigl, my old boss, I'm still pretty disappointed you haven't put an Altus livery on that LMP3, because I think that would look absolutely gorgeous. But nonetheless, whatever livery it has on it, Vandel's hoping to park it in victory lane at the end of an hour of racing here, as we get a little wave at the screen as well. G'day, Sebastian. How you doing, buddy? Well, it's going to be a good fight between him and Brandon Groach. Groach on pole position, which is all well and good, but he has to do it for a whole hour coming up. And we're talking about Brandon versus Sebastian. We can't forget there is another 18 drivers in this race who just as badly want to win this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we saw some big surprises at the Red Bull Ring, the last endurance race of the season. And I think we might be seeing a few more at Phillip Island, if not for the top 2, then at least for the podium places. Small correction on the championship win scenario. If Grotch wins, Vandel must come 3rd or better to win the title, and if Vandel finishes 2nd behind Grotch, then Vandel will win the title by a single point. That just shows you how close things are in this race, and very cold temperatures, as we mentioned, only 21 degrees Celsius track temperature at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So got a bit of a cool track for the drivers to contend with, but nonetheless, the main priority for them initially is going to be getting heat into those tyres, which have proven to be so slippery at the start of the races. We saw, especially at Zandvoort, a lot of mistakes being made in the opening sequence, where drivers were just getting in the car a little bit unloaded on the cold tyres. And one thing we've seen across this season is when this car snaps, there really is very little you can do to save it. It tends to just slip away from you faster and faster and faster, and you really are just along for the ride. So that's something for these drivers to contend with, especially when we factor in the long turn number 2, Southern Loop. Goes on for an age, and of course, that's the first time you're working the right side tyres. So these drivers are going to have to look out for that. As we take a look at all the drivers joining us on Zoom feed there, great to see 5 of them in for the season finale race.
Yeah, we got Brandon Groach up in the top left. On the top row is Dean Powell and Vinnie Newen, left to right. Then, of course, Vandel in the bottom left. In the bottom right, we got John Bradshaw. So, this will certainly be a good representation of the top 10 at the very least racing through this field, and I'm sure we'll check in with them if they have issues early on and have to fight their way back up. We've seen some fantastic drives in this series.
Yeah, we absolutely have. We've seen drivers, no matter where you start, you are still very much in for the hunt for a race win or podium at the very least. So it doesn't matter if you're starting 20th in this race or first. I really feel like you all have the exact same amount of opportunity. Just a couple of quick notes at the moment. We are expecting around 43 laps in this race. So a safety car might make it a one-stopper, but even then, it's going to be pretty tough to do because the drive's going to be consuming about 112 litres. So plenty of fuel to be taken, and we're expecting that second stop to be quite quick as well, maybe in the realm of about 6 to 7 seconds. So these drivers got a lot on their plate, but as you can see, there's your points as things stand on track right now. So that is the live points. So if Brandon Groach were to finish this race in the lead, as Reece said, lose the championship by 1 solitary point. Nothing at the end of 7 rounds of action. It has been a stellar series so far in the Südspeed Sportscar Series, but for one final time, we'll get the iRacing Porsche safety car rolling.
That we will. Short formation lap here at Phillip Island. They start on the run up to Ligier Heights. I think that's for the best. We're going to get things started very quickly here. All they got to do is negotiate MG in the last 2 turns, and then they can get going. So Brandon Groach is going to wait, obviously, for the safety car to pull into the pit lane. But how long will he wait to put the power down? Does he go early, try and get a lead as soon as possible, or does he bunch them all up and take them by surprise?
That's the thing, the earlier you go, the longer the opportunity for Sebastian Vandel to draft him all the way to turn 1. A beautiful shot of Barney the Flagman there, hosting this race once more in iRacing. He's waiting with the green flag, and Brandon Groach equally as patient as well. It's the title rivals side by side for the season finale, and we're underway, and the jump goes to Vandel. A great reaction time. He's played that perfectly off the jump, and in fact, Peter Smith got a drive up the inside as well as Chaos in the background goes into the field, and Chaos and Groach is around.
Oh no, that is a huge incident. 3 drivers there, Foster, Newen and Pyra, all involved in that. It looked like Newen had contact with another car and unfortunately went for a huge slide. And of course, Brandon Groach being one of the cars that went around there. He has damage to the front right.
He does indeed. And I'm just taking a look at the standings at the moment. I'm not seeing any meatball flags for him. I'm seeing meatball flags for Peter Smith, Mark Foster and Henry Fenton. But I think for now, a title protagonist has escaped. Well, the car is very, very hurt as Sam Lambert off the road once more as well. So big incident there. We'll definitely get a replay a little bit later on as we go side by side through the hay shed. Contact as well between those two. Great racing there. Lucky to get away with it. But nonetheless, Dean Hunt and Andrew Proctor, I think they might have been having a great little scrap there as we go on board with Dylan Walker to end the final lap.
Yeah, Dylan Walker losing 2 spots down to 8th. I think he was one of the cars that had to take avoiding action for that incident coming into turn 1, but regardless, what a rise through the field for Dean Powell, John Bradshaw, David Turnbull, Daniel Finney and Sean Bonici. Simply magnificent negotiation of what was a very chaotic turns 1 and 2 here, and that's going to be big points for them and a big points loss for Brandon Groach as things stand.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about the title being won by a single point earlier. The gap currently stands at 120 as we get plenty of good racing throughout the pack. But this is where it all went just a little bit wrong. You can see contact there in the background and really just absolutely nothing that could be done there. As it was just a separate incident actually for Groach, who made contact with Peter Smith going through turn number 1. We'll try and get on board maybe with Peter Smith. That might tell us a bit more of the story in regards to was Groach squeezing down or did Peter Smith perhaps move up a little bit? Regardless, we'll try and chase that up a little bit later on, but lots of cars into the pits at the end of lap 1.
Yeah, we got Smith, Newen and Foster currently in there at the moment. Fenson has already taken what looks like a fast repair and is now out on track once more. That's a real shame for those guys at the back of the field. Yeah, from my point of view, it looked like Smith was going for the inside at turn 1. He definitely got a slightly better jump than Groach did, but Brandon turned in, and unfortunately there was still overlap between the two of them. Same thing happened for Vinny Newen. He tried to move to the left, and Dylan Walker was right there with him.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just a lot of cars all going for the same little gap. It didn't quite work yet, as we will get an onboard here with Peter Smith. You can see he's tucked up to the inside, and I think, unfortunately,
Not
that's
Smith's
maybe...
fault.
I think, unfortunately, that is Groach just moving a little bit too far across. Peter Smith was up there. He was entitled to have that racing room. And unfortunately, the 22 just moving a bit too far over, which is a shame to see. But like we always say, there have been... Ooh, so we're seeing more cars spinning around there. That was one of the green Frog Leap cars. Maybe Sean Benici going off for a bit of a grass trekking at the moment, as Vinny Newen gets a black flag for his part in that lap 1 incident. But I just want to say as well, we shouldn't get too discouraged about the title fight, because how many times have we seen safety cars bring this pack back up together and get some drivers snatching victory from the jaws of defeat, as big contacts throughout the field. Saw Mark Foster in there take a big hit into the side of the 14 of Vinny Ewan.
Yeah, Vinny, going for that slide, unfortunately came back across the track in front of the midfield, so that's really unfortunate for everyone involved in that. The only person really at fault there was Newen. Probably should have just held his line coming into the first turn. Regardless, there has been no safety car from that initial incident. And now we keep an eye on everyone in the top 10, see if they can hold on to their positions until the potential first pit stop cycle comes around. Groach has managed to work his way back up to 14th place, and, well, he's still carrying damage on his car right now. There he is, and his lap times are not looking good right now. They're about 1.2 seconds off what the leaders are running. Yeah,
absolutely. So his car is definitely hurting a little bit. But the bright news is he still doesn't have a meatball flag. He's all good to continue running around right now. And he actually just made a little mistake and ran off the track at the Honda hairpin. So I think he's a bit frustrated right now with just one lucky safety car, as happened at, I'm thinking, Zandvoort. Was he caught in a lap 1 incident and ended up finishing on the podium? It was definitely a big turnaround for Groach at some point there. There's every means it could happen again. So yeah, take a little look at this fight at the moment between Dylan Walker and Eric Fenson, who are having a nice little battle right now, working their way through that final corner. And tell you what, it's quite a bit of sun glare to deal with as they work their way through that final quarter at 230 kilometers an hour. So the driver's having to guess just a little bit about where their corner is. But nonetheless, the drivers will now kickstart lap number 5. Lap time's going nice and quick at the moment, but none quicker than Sebastian Vondel, currently doing a 24-0 last lap around, as Dylan Walker gets a black flag now.
Causing a collision on lap 3. I'm not sure where that was from. I'm going to run back and check what that was for. Looks like an incident down at the Miller hairpin on lap 3. Unfortunately, tapped Sean Benici around. That's why we saw Benici spun off the inside of the circuit.
Dylan Walker there, of course, off the back of 2 race wins last time around. It was a dominating display. He did say in his post-race interview that Phillip Island wasn't so much to his liking. On lap 3, it has all come a little unstuck there as he dives up the inside 3 wide there. And Sean Benici, unfortunately, getting the worst of that, finding himself off in the grass and dumping a bunch of positions. Now runs down in 12th, which is actually still a 1-place improvement of where he qualified. But that really just shows how good Benici's initial start was, avoiding that lap 1 chaos. So a shame for Benici to be a bit down the order, and Dylan Walker will now dive his way down onto pit road and take that drive-through penalty.
Yeah, not the way you want to get a race like this started, but should still be able to work his way back up. He's one of the quickest drivers in this field. And that's also promoted Cameron Edwards up another position as well. He has the most positions gained in the entire field, up 12. That's magnificent there from a driver who did not set a time in qualifying or practice.
Yeah, absolutely. We picked him up in qualifying, and I think the one lap he was on, he decided to abort in the end. So whether it was an intentional loss, the first challenge, I do not know. But regardless, he is making progress while the sun shines, or falls as it currently is, as we head to 8 p.m. local time here at Phillip Island. But nonetheless, that 46 is moving in the right direction at the moment. His next target, Eric Fenson, who finds himself on the back of quite a nice little train, which includes the likes of Finney, Smith, and Turnbull, which is all a battle for P number 4 though. And I've just realized though, Peter Smith, of course, a lap down, but nonetheless, running some fast lap times right now.
Yeah, Smith trying to get back on the recovery, isn't he, after having to take a fast repair after his part in the initial incident on lap 1. The two incidents, I should probably say. They happened simultaneously, but in ever so slightly different locations. One thing this is going to do is give a nice slipstream to Daniel Finney. That should allow him to catch up to David Turnbull a little bit.
I've just seen that Brandon Groach, for a bit more pain, has been given a penalty for his part in the lap 1 incident. So for Brandon Groach, of course, it all started off so strong, but now this is going to be quite a tough recovery drive from him as he dives on a pit road and will take his drive-through penalty. And yeah, it's going to be a long battle from here.
Yeah, that's a big oof right there for Brandon Groach, not only being involved in the incident, but also getting a penalty for his part in it. And I think the only way he can possibly win the title now is if there's problems for Sebastian Vandel. And I mean, there have been some rounds where Vandel's had an issue, but by and large, when we've seen him get into the top position, there hasn't been any toppling him from it. A little bit of an off there for Mark Hallowell as well. I think just everyone trying to get used to the cars in race trim as they are dealing with a track that's still incredibly cold at 21C. This is what happened to Hallowell. Went wide, and unfortunately, you go a little bit off there in turn 2, and the gravel trap's the only place you're going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Southern Loop, of course, tightens up as the corner progresses. So if you go a little bit too fast at the entry, there really is no saving it. It's a one-way ticket to the gravel trap there. So not much he could have done. Recovers the car nicely, though, and will continue his way in position 15 right now, which is still a 5-place improvement where he qualified in P number 20. Of course, one of 2 drivers who didn't set a lap time. So still plenty of progress being made from the 87 cars. We take a look at Owen Pyra and Dylan Walker. Of course, Walker recovering from his penalty, and he slots by nice and easily past Owen Pyra.
Yeah, certainly did. Some issues for Owen Pyra just at the start of this race, and Walker on the recovery. So Pyra will be hoping that he can at the very least stick with him and try and ride the coattails of this impending meteoric rise. Pyra, of course, focusing hard in his space at the moment. I see a Woolworths bag there behind him. I think he's gone out for a bit of a grocery run today. But this is certainly not the car to be doing that in. No storage space in the LMP3s.
Well, I hope he got some cat food or something for the little kitty that's been hanging around his webcam. Of course, got to feed the little furballs from time to time, but nonetheless, he's doing a great job right now, working his way through there. And all I'm going to say is I hope to see the cat at some point back in the webcam, because that was definitely my favourite part of practice, as we take a look at John Bradshaw right now, who's working in second place right now. A very good drive currently, sitting behind Sebastian Vandel by some 3 seconds, but at the same time, not losing any ground to Dean Power behind. So Bradshaw right now in a very nice little rhythm after qualifying 7th, looking not out of place at all in the top spots.
Yeah, he's driving well at the moment, is Bradshaw. Vandel has gotten into his rhythm and is far and away the quickest car on track right now. But Bradshaw still quicker than Dean Powell by a few hundredths of a second. So I think he's going to be safe in that second place for the time being. He's just got to rely on Powell potentially having a couple of small errors behind him and not making any errors himself. Otherwise, that gap will be eliminated very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So just in a big moment for Vinnie Ewan as well. was about to comment he was making the start of his recovery drive and then immediately bowled it wide at Southern Loop as well. And did an exact replica of what happened to Mark Hallowell. So we'll take a look at what's happened to, I believe, that's Sebastian Vandel. So he's been very, very fast over the last couple of laps, but like you were saying, he's not bulletproof. So Vandel definitely needs to keep his head down and continue pumping in the lap times. He's about to cross the start-finish line now, and that lockup cost him some 0.4 of a second. So can't afford to do that too many times, as Bradshaw actually takes 1/10 of a second out of him on that occasion. But we know the pace of Vandel. He's not at too much threat right now. Just needs to keep pumping in the laps and hitting his markers as the laps go on. As quickest car last lap around was actually Dean Powell, so he's doing a great job in position number 3, as well as we take a look at the 58 of Sebastian Vandel, and definitely working the wheel pretty hard. You can see a bit of exhaustion already in the face of him as he works his way through. Probably just the concentration levels being so high, as we see a dive up the inside there from one of the Frog Leap racing cars. And he's going to battle his way on the exit of Daniel Finney. So Turnbull up in position there, which is great to see. And Daniel Finney has no response for now to make an attack back on Turnbull. But he has to be careful as well, because Eric Fenson is lurking in the background as well. So a nice little 3-car battle pack heating up at the moment. And I think this is where we're really going to start seeing the effect of the draft here at Phillip Island, because these cars suck up to the rear wing of one another down that front straight oh so well, as we even saw a little bobble there from Daniel Finney.
Yeah, and a little lock-up from Turnbull as well. You'll notice that Peter Smith has broken free of this fight. Smith's still a lap down, but he's able to get into his own rhythm. And we did see as well that Finney is not quite as quick as the other 2 cars in this group. Here comes Eric Fenson coming down the start-finish straight. Fenson looking to get back up to the position he started in, but he's not going for the move into turn 1. He's just lifting off a little bit and just allowing them to go through the turn line astern. He goes to the inside a little bit quicker than Finney does. Can't quite hook up the exit. I'm starting to think maybe drivers like Fenson are starting to think about the fuel save strategy, because, you know, we expect if they're going completely flat out the whole way, they'll be making 2 fuel stops, but we have seen 1 fuel stop and none at endurance rounds so far, as Brandon Groach comes back into the pits. This will be to get his damage fixed, I think. He'll be getting some service done, probably topping up the fuel tank, and we'll see where he can go from here. He'll definitely be hoping for a safety car.
Well, yeah, I hope he gets a safety car in the next couple of moments, because the real issue for him is going to be that exiting the penultimate corner is the 58 of Sebastian Vandel. And as we cross over just 15 minutes in this race, it's going to be very tight on pit exit, I have to say, between the two. I think Groach might just come out ahead of Sebastian Vandel, so he stays on the lead lap for now, which is oh so important for him. But this is going to be tight for Groach. He has to try and hold off, because if he falls a lap down, it's going to be even harder to recover from there.
Yeah, it will, and Vandel is looking just as quick as he always has. In fact, fastest lap down to a 1:23.6, as this fight is still ongoing for 4th. Turnbull still holding off Finney, who's holding off Fenson. And once again, haven't seen any kind of dive from Eric, though he might have a little bit of a look down here. He's later on the brakes than Finney is, but has to pull it up a little bit quicker. No dice there. Another lock-up for Turnbull.
Yep, definitely a bit of pressure starting to fall onto the 702 car right now. So we were speaking about how good of a start it was for these Frog Leap racing cars. They've all had some great position gains, but at the moment, David Turnbull just struggling just a little bit to hold off on the likes of Finney and Fenson. You can see lots of lockups, lots of little wiggles happening in the process as well, as this is a corner where if you are going to lock up, it is oh so easy to do, because of course the elevation change lifts that inside tyre up and makes it oh so challenging. But really the driver that's attacking here is Eric Fenson. He was so close out of the penultimate corner, actually clips the inside curb there, which is a bit unorthodox. But nonetheless, in the draft now, take a look at his speed, and I'm just going to keep an eye on his RPM as well, see if I can hear any kind of lifting, and I reckon he is lifting a little bit at the moment. because he was well and truly in the draft, and he didn't even trouble closing in onto the back of Daniel Finney.
Yeah, just lifting off slightly down the straight. That's an extra few millilitres of fuel saved as into the pits we have Andrew Proctor and Owen Pyra. We also saw Samuel Lambert come in half a lap ago. So this will be interesting to see where these drivers go from here. Pyra and Proctor pitting from round about the 12th and 13th positions. Not going to face much of a pressure from the drivers behind, I think. Proctor going to get a slower pit stop than Pyra, but still come out just ahead of him. And will certainly have the nice gap when Pyra comes out of the pit lane behind him just then. 35.8 seconds from the yellow cones to the green cones. And we keep an eye here on the 58 and see how close he still is to Brandon Groach. We also see Samuel Lambert up ahead there, and I'm thinking Groach is probably going to want to get up to Lambert pretty soon, make use of that slipstream and gain a little bit of extra time here on Vandel, who's still setting times in the low 124s, but Groach, the quickest car on track that time by 1 minute 23.7 as the battle continues here. Finney has caught back up to Turnbull.
Yeah, he has indeed. This is a great little three-car scrap at the moment, making their way through the long southern loop. And once again, Eric Fenson just thinks about the middle of the corner there, tries to sneak a nose up there, but can't quite do it. And in fact, it's Finney that's making the attack right now. He's got a great run out of turn number 2, but again decides to just sit behind us. I think we see our first little hint of contact there, as Eric Fenson just waves a little hello to the bean machine, maybe a bit hungry or snackish at the moment. But nonetheless, all well and all good. All cars will continue racing around for now. No one facing the wrong direction as Mark Hallowell decides to dive into the pits this lap around as well. So drivers definitely beginning to take their first pit stops, which is good to see, especially in the event of a safety car, which, as we've said in this series before, does close that pit lane first time around. And yeah, that was a definite little kiss there.
Yeah, a little smooch, little, and I think that it won't transition into a full makeout session anytime soon, because these guys are very clean drivers. But you definitely see that Fenson is wanting to get past. Vandel takes the fastest lap again, 123.6. Meanwhile, Groach setting a 24.2 and is in danger of going a lap down. We'll see how he goes from there, as we saw another... Ooh, yeah.
Here we go, side by side, Fenson and Finney. It's going to be a drag race out of turn 2. Finney tried it on Turnbull, but couldn't quite make it happen, and he's now going to pay the price and fall behind the Fenson brothers, who again is so late on the brakes, maybe too late this time around. Locks it up into the hairpin. He's going to hold on to it for now, but opens the door for Finney to look up the inside at Siberia. But that is an awkward corner to dive up the inside of, because that outside line is surprisingly cambered and can get some great exit traction, and that's exactly what Fenson was able to do. Is we're going to take a little bit of a look at the Südspeed replay of Andrew Proctor, who goes for a little whoopsie-daisy at MG.
Yeah, Proctor now down to 14th, unfortunately. Still 3 up from where he started, which is good. But, wow, now that Eric Fenson is by Daniel Finney, it looks like he's having a bit of trouble keeping his car under him. Saw how much he was working the wheel, soaring away, trying to keep control of it, coming out of the final corner. And there goes Finney, trying to get the inside for turn 1. But it's flat out in these cars, and if you can hold the outside line through 1, you have the inside line for 2. Fenson, though, I think decides to give up the position and maybe sit in the slipstream a little bit longer.
Yeah, probably the wise move, because as we saw, he was moving around quite a bit, so whether he just overheated his tyres a little bit, or maybe was just a bit uncomfortable having a car that close to his rear, because of course, that does change the airflow on your own car. So maybe the change of balance just threw Eric Fenson a little bit and needed a lap or 2 to adjust, but nonetheless, he's going to dive up the inside and almost crash into the side of Daniel Finney, as Samuel Lambert's having a bit of an issue on the outside of the track. But Finney and Fenson are just playing for keeps at the moment. Some very aggressive racing, but at the end of it all, it's allowing the drivers ahead to all escape just a little bit right now, with the likes of Bradshaw and Dean Powell Second and third, only a second separating those two, closing up on one another a little bit.
Yeah, on the last lap, Dean Powell took 2/10 and 2/100, it looks like, out of John Bradshaw. So things are going to heat up a little bit between those two. Things certainly heating up between Finney and Fenson still. And I tell you what, it's all giving a big advantage to Turnbull as well. The fact is, if you're the lead driver in a pack and the drivers behind are battling, that's the best possible thing you could hope for. It gives you a little bit of extra breathing room, and Turnbull might even be able to focus on his own lines and try and get some more pace, jet up to the back of Power and Bradshaw. But it's going to be a tough ask there, because it looks like about 5.2 seconds separating him from this battle on screen.
Yeah, absolutely. So a big mountain to climb for David Turnbull to catch up and join this fight. But I'm sure he's going to be thinking about trying to close that down over the next couple of laps. As once again, Fenson and Finney getting very close to each other in the Honda hairpin there. Or is it the Jack Miller hairpin these days?
It is.
It's always changing around on me. I can't quite keep up. But nonetheless, the Fenson brother car is looking very fast right now, but it's behind another car. As we saw a car spun around there and just recovering on the track, no issue at all. So that's all well and good, but I've got to say, Finney's actually caught back up to Turnbull now. So we've gone from going from a 3-car fight to a 2-car fight, and back up to a 3-car fight, as Turnbull runs a little bit wide at the bottom of the hill there. And that'll give Finney a bit of a slipstream, but once again, it's Eric Fenson who's the closest to attack.
Yeah, the thing with Turnbull is, he's getting that advantage with Finney and Fenson battling behind him, but it seems like he's struggling to get the car slowed down without locking it up into corners. That's really costing him time, and it's cost him enough time that Finney's going for it here in turn 1. They give each other just enough room through the turn, and David's going to have the inside line for turn 2 now. Fenson can do nothing. All he has to do is sit back and watch, and maybe he'll get a run on both of these guys who have compromised exits out of Southern Loop.
Yep, this could get very risky indeed into the Miller hairpin, but I think Fenson's going to play it safe, which I do not blame him at all. As Finney looks to the inside, it's still side by side, but I think Turnbull maybe done enough. He's on the inside line for Siberia, and he dives it up the inside, but Finney's going to hold the outside, use that banking I spoke of, but runs out of traction and hurts his exit. And here comes Fenson. What can he do? Goes through the long right-hander at Hayshed, but looking at his lines, I think he's playing it patient. Doesn't want to get too aggressive. Finney covers the inside anyway, so no way through on this occasion. As they'll break into the slow corner again, and Turnbull locks up once more, turning his tyres into a 50-cent piece. And Finney now going to try and get the exit traction, but here comes Fenson one more. This is just on repeat right now until it's not. As Finney says, enough is enough. I'm heading to the pits.
And he's going to join Bradshaw and Powell in there as well. Interesting stuff. These two cars pitting together. It's going to be a battle of the pit crews. How much fuel are either driver going to put into the car? They're joined once more. Edwards, Hunt, Swanpole, and Walker all coming into the lane too.
Yep, so definitely a lot of action right now. We'll keep an eye on all these stops as well. See who's taking the most amount of fuel, because of course under-fueling the car could be a bit of a strategy call. Get yourself some clean air and get yourself out of the battle pack you're facing. We're seeing some pit stops in the realm of over 21 seconds, some others about 15 seconds. So lots of drivers with some different strategies. You can see 20.6 seconds there for Finney, 21.3 for Edwards, whereas is anyone else here going to under-fuel? I think most of them are all playing it fairly safe and getting as much fuel as they can in for this very first pit stop.
Yeah, I think they're obviously trying to get as much into the car as they can as Vandel makes his way to the pit lane with just over 30 minutes to go. That's going to force most of the drivers into a splash and dash right at the end if the race still goes safety car free. That's the big kicker here. If there is a safety car, the drivers who have pitted and taken all of that fuel with a pit stop time of around 20 to 21 seconds, they will likely be able to get to the end without having to pit again.
Yep, absolutely. And just sort of thinking about it now, Brandon Groach, with how many laps he did at the start of the race, he probably only needs one pit stop as well. Of
Yeah.
course, he's still got a long way away from challenging Vandel. There's still a heap of lost time and all of that. But nonetheless, he's not as far out of this as first feared. So still a chance here for Brandon Groach, who crucially across that stint punched in some quick times, including beating Vandel's fastest lap by a single thousandth of a second. He's still in this. He's still on the lead lap. That's exactly what he needed to do to keep his slim title chances alive at this point in time, as our leaders will cross the start-finish line. And you can see Daniel Finney there making a pass as well. All the drivers just exiting the pit lane. He's got Eric Fenson ahead of him. These guys were fighting, and that's going to be a change of position here. And that has happened, surprisingly, because Eric Fenson actually had a far longer pit stop in the realm of about 1.2 seconds over Daniel Finney. So I'm wondering, is that the effect of tyres being taken and a slow out lap here for Daniel Finney as Fenson bowls it off immediately?
Yeah, okay. Seems like a bit of a pattern in this series. We always start talking about potential scenarios, or, you know, what a driver might have done, what they're going to do in the next few laps, and then one of them makes a mistake and we're right back to square one.
It does seem to be a recurring theme, doesn't it? And speaking of recurring themes, how about we put Fenson and Finney side by side? You haven't seen enough of that in this race so far. That's a long way around the outside for Finney, but he's going to be late on the brakes, but not as late as Eric Fenson. Pulls the car up and finally gets the job done. So we'll see if he can hold on to it over the next couple of laps. Of course, he's got slightly warmer tyres, but yeah, that car's moving around just a little bit on corner exit. Of course, these cars do have traction control, but doesn't mean they don't move around.
Yeah, indeed. Every time Eric Fenson goes through that penultimate corner, he is struggling for rear grip. Finney, not struggling for rear grip at all. He once again gets a run, and up the inside of turn one he goes. He is well clear of Fenson by the time they get to the braking point, but Eric decides, nah, I'm going to stick my nose up the inside of turn two anyway, and completes the move on the exit. Finney could not get the power down.
No, he could not. And worth noting as well, both of these drivers did end up jumping David Turnbull, who out of the three of these drivers did have the longest pit stop here. So Turnbull, I think more than anything, just having a bit of a slow stop rather than taking on more fuel. We do expect that most of these drivers would have roughly taken the same amount. So that's worth noting as well, that David Turnbull, a net 2 positions lost in this current pit stop cycle. You can see him lurking in the background there, behind the likes of Daniel Finney and Eric Fenson, as well as Brandon Groach sets a new fastest lap of the race just to put one over on Sebastian Vandel, a 23.55 and 5 again.
Can Vandel beat that? This is his first proper lap out of the pits, as Peter Smith is now in the box as well. Newen and Foster coming into the lane as well. 124.8 for Vandel, so not going to be much danger of Groach losing that fastest lap. At least for the time being. These drivers coming into the pits now, they're all a lap down or more, and they're all the drivers that face those big issues coming into the first couple of turns of the race. So I think still plenty that is left to be done to those cars, at least in the case of Mark Foster, who's been stopped in the box now for over half a minute.
Yeah, it's a very long pit stop indeed for him, but we'll go to a Südspeed replay and check out how Dean Hunt's going into this ever so slow final corner, but he tries to take it not so slow, runs a bit deep, and I think there might be Dylan Walker going like a trailer park girl around the outside.
Oh, and a problem for Fenson. Eric Fenson has gone around at Miller Corner. That's unfortunate for him. And it also releases Daniel Finney to chase down, potentially, Dean Powell for the last spot on the podium. Let's see how that happened for him. Was there contact between the two cars? No. Just looks to me like Fenson, he got on the power in the middle of the turn, and the rear wasn't quite ready to grip up. Still, those issues with the rear tyres there for Fenson.
Yeah, it's definitely a shame for him, but you can see how much he's been struggling with the car across the last few laps. He's constantly moving it around, just having little mini wiggles here and there, and I think finally they've caught up to him, maybe even overheating the tyres. We're talking about, you know, maybe the tyres not being hot enough or up to temp for him. Maybe it's the other side of the coin. Maybe his tyres are actually too hot, and that's where the issues are stemming from, but no such issues for Sebastian Vandel right now, currently leading the race by some 7.5 seconds. just running mid-24s at the moment. Nothing crazy, but just doing what he needs to do right now. So just biding his time with Sebastian Varndale, because he knows in 28 minutes time, he could be the inaugural Südspeed Sportscar Series champion.
Yeah, all he has to do is just drive to the numbers and keep the car nice and clean. He enjoys a 7.7 second lead right now, which is nothing short of fantastic, and arguably where he's used to being in this series, at least in the first part of the season. Change for position. It looks like Eric Fenson has had another problem, and David Turnbull also having an issue too. That's Jacques Swanpole getting by Fenson for just a couple of moments, but Eric getting a better run out of Siberia. They go side by side through Hayshed, and it looks like Jacques has the run on him this time.
Yeah, he does. That's a lot of corner speed at the top of the hill.
That's too much.
It's very much too much, as Eric Fenson decides to miss that corner once again. Definitely a challenging point for him, as we'll take a look at exactly how all of this transpired. It all started on the run through Stoner Curve and into Miller Quarter here as well. That's a big look up the inside there. I was going to say, I don't think it's going to happen from that far back. Nope. It all stems from a little mistake at the mid-corner and exit there for Eric Fenson. And that's where it all kicked off around the outside for Swanpole. And very close to the mid-corner there between these two. And that's where we picked everything up and saw this great racing as well. As we're seeing something going on for Owen Pyra at the moment. Of course, running P9 at the time, but not no more, as he loops it around at that penultimate corner, which I've got to say is one of those corners, when you speak about the great corners at Phillip Island, it's not really one of those places you sort of tend to bring up, Reese, but in these LMP3 cars, it's really proving quite the handful.
Yeah, it is. I mean, depending on the class of car that you're racing, as we keep an eye on this fight between Turnbull and Edwards, who's continued his meteoric rise up the field. Depending on the speed of the car, the characteristics of the car, that penultimate corner can be anywhere from, just easing on the throttle through it to flat out all the way through. And I think these LMP3 cars are just on the verge of being flat out through the final corner. But you do need to be extremely careful not to get too much oversteer as the rear tires spin up. That is an acceleration zone corner, that one is. So it's very easy to make an error through there.
Yep, absolutely. So these LMP3 cars not making life too easy for our drivers as they work their way now through turn number 1, which is one of the easier corners. But as has often been the case, Eric Fenson finds himself side by side with another car. Swanpole up the inside at turn number 1, and will take that position back as these two continue their little swapsies at the moment. Fenson getting a big run there. That was great exit drive. Got a bit of grass there, but shouldn't hurt his exit too much. So if he wants to go for a dive at Miller Corner, he does have the opportunity, but it's defensive for Swanpole. Fenson late on the brakes. What can he do? Tries to pull it up or go for a switch over. Trying to pick up the power. Can't quite do it. So Swanpole holds on to that spot once more. Fenson just in a fighting mood tonight. It's great to see.
Yeah, Fenson now with the few mistakes that he's made, a couple positions down from where he started, and he'll be wanting to get those positions back. Unfortunately, it seems like the car in race trim is not really to his liking. He's in a fighting mood, you say. Well, most of the fighting he's been doing is with his own machinery.
Unfortunately, that is true. As he mentioned, braking has been a big struggle point so far, and we'll see what he can do on this particular lap, because of course Swanpole going to get the draft here from Mark Hallowell, potentially. So Fenson's speed down this front straight may not be as strong as it has been over the previous few laps, but I don't suspect any position swaps on this particular occasion, as Fenson should be able to dive up the inside as well, and Mark Hallowell does the respectful thing and lets both of the lead lap drivers get through without any fuss at all, as Fenson continues looking racy through Southern Loop. Both drivers taking a very tight line there through the mid-corner, and trying to use the downforce of this Ligier LMP3. And again, Swanpole defensive, but Fenson's closer this time. The overlaps happened earlier. He's way later on the brakes. They're going to make contact at the mid-corner. No. And Swanpole drives Fenson out of road. And we'll see what happens here. They still just about going to end up side by side with Swan Pole on the exit.
Oh, there we go.
Benson will make that move happen as Swan Pole goes for a little pirouette.
Yeah, too deep into Miller, and oh god, he almost got stuck there. Fortunately, able to go over the hump in the grass there on the exit of the banked corner. Yeah, Swanpole, I think, just going a bit too deep at both corners, and unfortunate for him, that is the battle over, and Swanpole is now back to 12th place between the fight between Owen Pyra and Brandon Groach. Here's the other view of it. So, yeah, I mean, he could have turned in a little bit earlier there and still given room to Fenson on the inside. Unfortunately, just on the brakes a bit too late, overwhelmed the fronts, and took him a little bit of effort to get that thing over the hump.
Yeah, absolutely. As Owen Pyra dives into the pit lane, and I believe he's going to be the first of our drivers to take their second necessary fuel stop at the moment. So that's interesting to see, and he was getting caught quite rapidly by Brandon Groach. So Groach now well and truly finding himself within the drivers in this race now. So he's no longer catching the pack. He's trying to pass the pack, so to speak. And his next target is going to be Dean Hunt, just a couple of seconds up the road. And last lap around, a 23.7 versus a 25.5 for Dean Hunt. So near enough 2 seconds a lap. Very much Brandon Groach to be moving up the leaderboard very quickly soon.
Yeah, and another thing we have to think about is stint length as well. Vandel did 19 laps from my maths before he came into the pits for the first time. And Groach is currently on his 17th lap, so we should expect Groach to come into the pits very soon. That is, if at his initial service pit stop, he ended up not putting any fuel in the car to save time. We'll have to wait and see on that. Regardless, it's only going to be a short stop here for Brandon Groach when he decides to come in. He's up into the top 10. He'll fall outside of it when he comes in for the second visit to the lane. We'll see if there's still a safety car within the last 10 minutes of this race or thereabouts, because that could change everything. Hallowell in the pits now.
Yep, absolutely. So Hallowell dives in as well. I believe not for his second time. He's had a couple of trips to the pit lane today, has Hallowell. Nonetheless, still having a great showing. Great to see him still circulating on track as well. But go on board with Sean Bonici, who did, I believe, just come out of the pits behind Brandon Groach. And we'll take a look at him and how he's working his way around this circuit at the moment. Diving into the Miller corner. He's behind Peter Smith at the moment. Another one of the drivers who was caught up in that lap 1 incident, and he has fallen a lap down and has the 69 car, which is a shame to see, of course, after qualifying position number 3, but still having some good pace, and just running some 27s at the moment, so just sort of circulating at a bit of a slower pace, but nonetheless still punching the laps down.
Yeah, indeed. Have a look at that. Once again, the fight between Groach and Vandel, it might be just about over in terms of the championship, but it's not over in terms of pace. They have been trading the fastest lap, and this time Vandel running 0.04 of a second faster than Groach's fastest lap. As into the pits now comes the number 22 of Groach. So, pretty much right on the money from what I predicted. 18 laps complete on that stint. So I would expect if he did take fuel at his last stop, Groach's last pit stop should be at least a second or so shorter.
Well, I think this might be a bit of a longer stop because he only took 13 seconds of fuel in that very first pit stop. I think more than anything, just to make sure he came out of the pits ahead of Vandel, not to be a lap down. And if we're predicting about 15 laps left in this race or so, that means he's almost near enough taking a full tank in this current fuel restriction. And indeed, it's about an 18-second pit stop, whereas in the first pit stop, we were seeing pit stops around 21 seconds. So near enough, a full tank of fuel just gone into that 22 car. And just going to check out the relatives. He has come out ahead of Sebastian Vandel. So he stays on the lead lap for now, but there's no more than probably 6 or 7 seconds in it, I reckon.
Yeah, it's about the same as it was when Groach initially came out of the pits, and remember, we might be expecting Vandel to take another stop, potentially a splash and dash, but if he's far enough out there on his own by 12 seconds, he can afford to save a bit of fuel and just coast to the end if he needs to. So again, it's a safety car that Groach is going to have to rely on to try and make up some positions. I do apologise for my initial assessment of Groach's pit stop time, evidently not looking at my numbers properly. Owen Pyra, meanwhile, getting out ahead of Brandon Groach for the time being, but Groach's fastest lap is half a second quicker than Pyra's, so at the very least I think Groach is going to be on the back of Pyra within the next 3 laps or so.
Yeah, I think Groach definitely the favourite in this particular fight, and he's got a lot on the stakes at the moment. He's of course still pushing that for that title, just in case there is a safety car or something like that to bring the pack together. But I've got to say, I've got to feel a little bit doubtful about a safety car, just purely because there is so much runoff here at Phillip Island. It's one of those circuits you don't really see a car getting stuck necessarily close to the racing line or anything. So definitely a slim chance for Groach here. So he's going to hold on to that hope, I'm sure. But nonetheless, I think Vandel in a very strong position right now as he leads his way out of turn 2 on what is his 31st lap at the moment. Predicting about 13 laps to go, so plenty more laps to tick down for him as he works his 12th lap of the stint, so maybe a pit stop in the next 7 laps or so.
Yeah, we shall see. Meanwhile, keeping an eye on what has been a stellar drive for John Bradshaw, got into second after the lap 1 crashes and has not looked back since. He did have quite the battle with Dean Powell, but once those two took their pit stops, Bradshaw round about 9/10 of a second faster through the pit lane, and I think he'll be very happy with second place if he can hold on to it. But remember, we're still not sure whether or not drivers will be taking a splash and dash or saving fuel to the end. The drivers that have already taken their first stop, they pitted about 12 laps ago, and that was with 35 or so minutes to go. So unless they have been lifting and coasting into every single corner, I would expect at least a few seconds stopped in the box.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll wait and see how that all pans out over the next couple of moments as Dean Powell is just hunting Mark Hellawell down that front straight. As we also do have Brandon Groach now finally on the back of Owen Pyra, and we'll see how this little battle transpires over the next couple of moments as well, as they get very close into Miller Corner, as well does Brandon Groach. So what can he do with Owen Pyra? How quickly can he try and dispatch the 25 car who has driven a decent race so far? He qualified 12th and is holding 12th for now, and just been running the laps at the moment in his own little battle. But Groach right now, you'd have to imagine, is going to try and make a pass happen sooner rather than later. See if he can do it before the end of the lap, but otherwise I think a move into turn 1's looking likely.
Yeah, we shall see. Let's give it a go. That's a lovely exit from MG there for Brandon Groach. Pyra, meanwhile, with a slightly straighter exit, still maintains the run coming into the final corner, but it's flat out through this last turn for these cars and already picking up the slipstream. Pyra going a little bit defensive down the start-finish straight. He's going to potentially commit to the outside line for turn 1, which will be the inside for turn 2. Can he hold on versus Brandon Groach here? No, Groach is already through by the time they get to the end of turn 1.
Yeah, very authoritative by Groach there, sort of just diving up the inside and saying, nope, this is my position now, and I'm going to drive off the track, ruin my exit speed, and maybe give you a bit of a chance to fight back. But Owen Pyra not quite close enough on this occasion, so 22 is through and moves himself up the order now into position number 12, with plenty of drivers left to take their pit stops as well. Looking good for a top 10 finish, but one driver still on course for a race win is Vandel. Gap out to almost 14 seconds now. It's a dominating display, almost a second quicker than Bradshaw last lap around. He really is in a world of his own right now.
Yeah, that he is. There's no stopping Sebastian Vandel when he gets into the lead of a race and streaks away with no pressure behind him. He was the fastest car on track last time by too, only driver last lap in the 1 minute 23 second bracket. And with 13 minutes remaining in the race, not much else to be said about his performance tonight. And I think reflective of his whole performance in at least the first half of this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, we saw him burst out of the blocks more than anything at the start of the season with poles and race wins here and there. Of course, he didn't get the double immediately at Donington Park. I believe he did actually lose race 2 to Brandon Groach. But regardless, it was a very dominating display. I'm tripping over my words because I've just seen a big snack of oversteer for Vandel through Southern Loop there. That was a big little moment there. But he caught it. He's staying on top of it for now, which is great to see. But yeah, it was a bit of a tough middle phase of the season for Vandel, wasn't it? Of course, we saw the non-appearance at the Red Bull Ring, which is a shame to see, as we'll actually take a look at what happened to Vandel at Southern Loop here. And that's why I was stuttering over my words, because he was stuttering over the steering wheel. But nonetheless, the non-appearance of the Red Bull Ring was a shame, not to see him on that occasion. But of course, Brandon Groach got pole position there and then actually disconnected from the race lead as well. So it didn't really matter too much in the grand scheme of things for Vandel at that particular event. But then we also saw a car spun, Owen Pyra, at the exit of MG there. But then we also saw the incidents for Vandel at Zandvoort. We saw him get caught up in a late race safety car after he led the opening phase of the race, caught up in a major crash, and suddenly had to fight back through the field. And that was another big swing in the championship. So for Vandel, who started oh so well in the season, it did all fall apart just a little bit in the mid phase. But through it all, he's had a great race here at Phillip Island. And with 9 laps to go and the laps ticking down one by one, he's looking very much in control now.
Yeah, still enjoying a huge lead. This time it's blown out to over 14 seconds over John Bradshaw. Meanwhile, speaking of Bradshaw, Dean Powell is starting to close up on him as David Turnbull comes into the pits for his second stop of the night. So that's the first driver to take stop number 2. So he wasn't able to make it to the end. We'll see if anyone else follows him in the next couple of laps. But Powell taking 3.5 tenths almost out of Bradshaw on the last lap. So still very much on for second.
Yeah, it is. So we'll see how this pans out. Of course, last pit stop, I'm just taking a look. I was near enough neck and neck, just 4 tenths separating the two cars. But that 4 tenths was in the favor, or not in the favor of Dean Powell, I should say. He had a slightly longer stop, but that could theoretically mean that he has a shorter pit stop coming up as well. So we'll keep an eye on this, see if that closes up just a little bit, and how this transpires. As you sort of alluded to, it was Vandel just punched in a 23.4, a new fast lap of the race there. Very competitive indeed. But Bradshaw goes across the line, punches in a 24.0, which is his quickest lap of the race, and only a 24.3 for Dean Powell. So Bradshaw just rising to the challenge now.
Yes, absolutely he is. It's been a very strong drive from Bradshaw. Unfortunately, we can't give him driver of the day this round because he already got driver of the day earlier in the season. Cam Edwards, too, has already received a driver of the day award, but if he hadn't, I'd certainly give it to Edwards today for his meteoric rise, 14 places up into the top 5. Right now, it's looking like the likes of Jacques Swanpole, maybe Dean Hunt, or Dean Powell, certainly in the running for a Südspeed t-shirt as awarded by us at the end of the broadcast, Bo.
Yeah, absolutely. There has been some great drives. You only have to look at the position swapped little graph there to see just how crazy the race has been as well, especially in that opening phase with the likes of Cam Edwards, 14 spots gained, Swampole 11 spots gained, Dean Hunt 8 spots, Finney, Powell both on 6 spots gained, with Bradshaw up 5 and Turnbull up 3 as well. So definitely some big movers and shakers. You've also got the likes of Andrew Proctor up 3 spots, but one driver that's about to lose some spots, or not at all, is the likes of Bradshaw and Dean Powell. They're both on the pit lane now, so we spoke about the likes of Dean Powell having a slightly longer first pit stop. Does that benefit now swing around in the second pit stop? Is he able to get the jump and try and get past John Bradshaw, as neither car that I can see goes on the jack. So they're keeping their nice warm tyres, which is the right call. And that's not what I was expecting at all, as Bradshaw flies out of the blocks and leaves Dean Powell in his dust.
Absolutely does. That's an interesting matchup between the two of them. Bradshaw with a 9.7 second stop, Dean Powell 11 seconds. So yeah, I'm interested to see why that's the case, as Peter Smith and Andrew Proctor are continuing to battle over 14th place a lap down. They've come out just, John Bradshaw has come out just ahead of them, as we have Dean Hunt and Jacques Swanpole completing their stops. Dean Powell with a 9 second stop. 9.2 second stop for Swanpole, as Vandel comes in and, oh, dearie me.
Oh, it's all gone
no.
a little bit wrong there for Dean Powell, unfortunately. And, of course, we saw the car didn't go up on the jacks in the pit stop, so that's not cold tyres necessarily. But, of course, they will cool down as the car is stationary. I do wonder if that's maybe just caught him out a little bit, as Vandel is on pit lane now as well. So our race leader dives on in for his final pit stop of the year. Weighs in at 8.6 seconds, or 8.2 seconds, correcting. And he's out nice and easily as well. But, yeah, that's a shame for Dean Powell, who was really in that fight for second place. And for a while there, looked pretty good to close in on John Bradshaw.
Yeah, it's always painful when a battle ends like that, with one driver making a mistake, the one chasing. Now all Bradshaw needs to do is hit his marks, because he now holds on to about a 7.5 second lead over Dean Powell right now. And with only 6 minutes to go in the race, there's no way that Powell's going to be able to make up that time without Bradshaw himself making an error. Meanwhile, here's Hunt dealing with Brandon Groach behind him, as Henry Fenson makes his way into the pits for the third time in this race. Still potentially waiting on another stop from a few drivers, but it looks like pretty much all of them have cleared the minimum 2 stops we were expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of battles still on track to fight it out for. This is one of them, with the likes of Groach and Dean Hunt right now, as he flirts with the exit of the track there. Just very, very close indeed. But we'll see if this transpires into a nice little battle or not. But it is worth mentioning these guys are teammates. And, well, I think that pass says everything you need to know about how that one was going to go down. So Groach now moves up a spot into position number 9. And we'll get a little replay here, because that's flirting with danger.
Yeah, certainly is. I mean, the whole way around Phillip Island, you're flirting with danger, I'd argue. It's such a high-speed track, and the margins for error are so low, this being such an old-school circuit with no tarmac runoff. At least in the sim, there is tarmac runoff at turn 1 now in the real world, but everywhere else, you've just got grass separating you by the curbs.
Yep, absolutely. And, well, if you don't get close to that grass, you're going to be a little bit slow around here. And no driver wants to be slow, so they're all going to test the limits just a little bit. How many millimeters can you take out of the curb, and just try and open up the corners one by one to make a bit more lap speed? Well, if you want to find out how to do that, maybe it's worth asking Sebastian Vandel, consistently punching in some very quick lap times, despite a little wiggle there at MG. He looks pretty calm, cool, and collected, especially compared to how he was at the start of the broadcast. I think he's now realizing that all he has to do is hit his marks, and in about 3 laps or so time, he will be the inaugural champion of the Südspeed Sportscar Series with a fairly hefty 17-second lead right now.
Yeah, this has been the drive of a champion, hasn't it, for Sebastian Vandel? It's a shame that the incident happened at turn 1. I think if Brandon Groach had turned in just a little bit later for turn 1, if he just left a little bit more room on the inside, we might have seen a bit of a closer battle between the two. But at the end of the day, it is going to be Vandel who comes away with the dominant victory, while Groach is still languishing a bit further down in the field. He has made his way back into the top 10, but I don't think he's going to make up much more from that. Oh, speaking of, he's just had an incident. Oh dear, I've commentators cursed him further. Looks like a spin out of MG, back to 10th.
Yeah, it's a shame there, but at this point as well, even if there was a safety car. Unfortunately, it's just going to end the race, and it's not going to help him all too much. And honestly, we did mention fatigue was going to be a factor in this race, and yeah, I think at the end of it all, he's just probably lost a bit of concentration there and looped it all around, which is a shame to see. But I think catching up to the back of Dylan Walker would have been quite the stretch anyway, as one of our last little battles still panning out on the circuit involves Owen Pyra and Henry Fenson. Of course, the Fenson brothers have found themselves in quite a bit of action in this race so far. Of course, a lot of it has come from Eric Fenson, but Henry has seen his fair share as well as he works his way through Southern Loop for the third last time. And we'll see what he can do against the likes of Owen Pyra. Last lap around, it was a little bit quicker for Henry Fenson, to the realm of about 0.8 of a second. So if he keeps that sort of pace up, he may just get there by the end of the race.
Yeah, he's looking pretty quick, is Henry. One of the very few drivers in this field who have dipped below 1 minute and 24 seconds as their quickest laps. The only other drivers to do that are, of course, Vandel and Groach, from what I can see. Also Vinnie Nguyen as well, who is back in the pits once more from 13th place. He is going to take the record for most visits to the lane in this race. That's his 4th time trundling through the pit boxes.
That's understandable. It is quite a nice pit lane here at Phillip Island, and it probably doesn't get the appreciation it deserves, I have to say. But that pit exit is definitely a little nerve-wracking at the best of times, as cars go flying by at very high speeds. And one of those drivers going by at high speeds is about to be this man, Sebastian Vandel. And I bring that up because he's not going to be doing that too many more times, because he has just started his final lap of the race, and he's going to start that final lap of the race by punching in a 23.3. And honestly, I feel like that just sort of sums up Sebastian Vandel. It has had its ups and downs this season. Of course, I mentioned Zandvoort earlier in the non-start at the Red Bull Ring, but it's had these incredible peaks as well. We think about the likes of Donington, where he threw the gauntlet out to all the drivers and said, I'm the driver to beat. I'm going to lay down the times. Catch me if you can. I'm going to go for a spin. He's got one more lap before the burnouts begin. I respected Vandel, but just one lap later, please. I'm trying to do your little victory speech here, but those little moments, those little slip-ups that we saw at Miller Corner haven't deterred him, and he's always bounced back very, very well. Of course, I believe we also saw at Barcelona an issue for Vandel. He got caught up in some little troubles, but again, bounced back, he fought back and grabbed whatever points were available on the table. And that's exactly what you have to do to win a championship. You win a championship on your bad days, and this guy has not gave up. Despite the spin at Miller Corner, it has been a near enough flawless drive for Sebastian Vandel. And well, this corner's flat out. There's not much to it. Ladies and gentlemen, your inaugural champion in the Südspeed Sportscar Series goes to Sebastian Vandel from Altus Australia. A phenomenal drive, a phenomenal series, and I tip my hat to you, good sir. And now you can do your proper spins at Miller Corner, should you so wish. Of course, we can't forget the other drivers in this race. Second place to John Bradshaw. What a drive that is, flashing the headlights across the start-finish line. He will come home in the end with quite a margin, it has to be said, over Dean Powell, who will rack up a podium for the season as well. Of course, Daniel Finney in the Bean Machine in position number 4, one of his better results for the season of late as well. David Turnbull in the top 5 as well, Reese.
Yeah, some awesome drives from everyone involved there. Bradshaw, Powell, Finney and Turnbull surviving the initial chaos on the first lap here, and there are the victory burnouts for Sebastian Vandel. Did you see the relief on his face when he crossed the line? It was fantastic to see. He knew that he had definitely had his ups and downs in this season, but he could finally take all of that pressure off his shoulders.
Yeah, that was a great reaction. The little fist bump across the start-finish line there. And hey, look, I'd be doing a little fist bump as well. That was a great season. He did everything he needed to do. And at the end of it all, he can call himself the champion as well. And of course, there are some little prizes to go with that as well. So can't forget about that as well. So congratulations to him for picking them up, as if he didn't win enough from this series so far. And there the burnouts are. They finally begin. and the smoke show for the 58, the Altus Australia car, and Vandel, your season champion as well.
Well, there we go. That is going to bring things to an end for the Südspeed Sportscar Series for 2023. And here's hoping that things can get started again very soon for Südspeed and the series that they organise. Here are the results, Bo. Let's go through them.
Yep, absolutely. And on top in the race results and on top in the championship is Vandel leading things home after a grueling 43 laps here at Phillip Island. He leads John Bradshaw home by 16 seconds, which is actually kind of surprising given that last lap spin where he only managed a 28.8. Dean Powell rounds off our podium, a great drive from him, and makes it a double Blackhawk Motorsport podium. And, well, I'm just going to announce it here as well. It is driver of the day as well for Dean Powell. Well done, mate, and look forward to speaking to you in a couple of moments' time. The Bean Machine rounds things off in position number 4. A great drive from Finney ahead of David Turnbull in 5th in the Frog Leap racing car. Of course, he didn't want to be the lead car from Frog Leap tonight, but nonetheless, he earned his place as their lead car ahead of Eric Fenson, who had some troubles earlier in the race, but 6th place is still very respectable, all things considered, ahead of Cam Edwards, who finishes some 12 spots gained from his qualifying spot after not setting a qualifying time. Dylan Walker had a penalty earlier in the race, recovers to 8th. He'll finish ahead of Dean Hunt, Brandon Groach, your 2 other Frog Leap produced racing cars, and I have to say for Brandon Groach, a great recovery drive after that first lap.
Yeah, 100% agreed. It's 7 spots gained for Jacques Swanpole, 1 minute and 5 seconds behind Vandel. And then we have Henry Fenson and Owen Pyra, the last finishers on the lead lap. Peter Smith, it was a fantastic qualifying performance from him, but it all went wrong in the first turn with that contact with Brandon Groach. Unfortunately, has to settle for 14th to end off the season. It's 15th for Proctor, behind him Benici, Lambert and Newen. Mark Hallowell finishing 2 laps down, and our sole retirement from the race is Mark Foster, who came into the pits 24 laps from the end and did not return to the racetrack.
Well, there we go. What a season it has been. What a dramatic final race as well. I think we might get some interviews started because we have plenty of people to speak to, and I think no one should be spoken to first besides this guy, Sebastian Vandel, not just our race winner, but mate, our series champion as well. How you feeling?
Feeling good after that one. It was a shame what happened to Brendan at the start of the race. I was looking forward to having a good battle with him, fighting out for the championship. I reckon that would have been some good fun and good for the broadcast as well. But yeah, just unfortunate what happened to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Not great to see, but of course, we knew mistakes were going to come into this race, and fatigue was going to be a factor as well. How did you find that throughout the race? And are we going to talk about that final lap, or are we going to avoid that?
Yeah, let's not talk about that one. The guys are going off a little bit towards the end, like especially through Honda, and then just on the exit, and then yeah, last lap that happened. But yeah, it was. I was struggling a bit to keep the concentration, but we held on to it in the end, which was good.
Well, absolutely you did. So how do you sort of rate the season as a whole? Of course, you had some high moments, of course, the strong start at the likes of Donington and Montreal as well. Had some low moments in there as well, such as Zandvoort. Overall, how do you feel your performance was this season?
Yeah, it's been a great season. Massive shout out to the boys from Südspeed for putting this on. It's been awesome fun. But yeah, we started off the season strong with some good pace, and then just like through the midway through the season, we just were struggling for pace a bit there. Just couldn't quite get the setup to work, and then yeah, thankfully for this last race, found the mojo back and came away with the win.
Yep, absolutely, mate. Before I let you go, is there anybody you'd like to thank?
Yeah, massive thanks to all the boys from Altus Australia for all their help and stuff with the setup, and the team sponsors that I still haven't learned.
Oh,
sorry,
mate.
but, I was gonna go off the top of my head. I think it's VRS, Altus Engineering, Race Tech, and that's all that I know.
Starts with L.
Lodge.
Lodge.
Oh, Logitech.
There we go.
Across the line. Well, Seb, I'll let you go celebrate. Well, first of all, before I let you go, one final question. How are we going to celebrate this one?
I don't know, maybe a shoey with some non-alcoholic beverage.
That sounds good to me, buddy. All right, I'll let you go. Go enjoy your non-alcoholic beverage in a shoe, and tell Simon to get a livery on that LMP3 nice and soon.
Will do. Thank you.
See you, buddy.
Yeah, mate.
Well, there we go. Our season champion. What a race it was for him. But another driver that managed to have a great race and a pretty good season as well. But what we might even do is go to John. Might go to John Bradshaw and Reese. I believe you're standing by.
Yeah, indeed. He was out of the room for a couple of moments, but we can.
Having a cancer stick.
Of course, yeah, going for a bit of a smoko after a very strong drive, John. You must be very happy with that, starting 7th, finishing 2nd. It was probably a bit stressful to negotiate the chaos in the first couple of corners.
Oh, I saw it early. I saw the fellas collide early, and I thought there might have been a safety car, but there wasn't. So it put me in 2nd, and just held it till the end. Really, it was a very uneventful race, really. But yeah, it's better than Danbort, where I got frustrated and did the old rage quit there. But yeah, so the swings and roundabouts this game, I tell you.
Absolutely, but it was certainly a big swing / roundabout here today with your fight with your teammate Dean Powell. How were you guys going to play the strategy for this one? Were you working together on it?
Oh no, we're just, because there was no safety cars, we just run the tank empty and pit. And we were just chatting in the waiting room, and he he'd sort of catch me at the end of the stint on lower fuel, and I was pulling away on full, on the heavier tank, and so yeah, we sort of kept about the same pace really.
Well, regardless,
I think he had a little half spin, down at Hondo, caught it, but lost a few seconds, and then there was no pressure after that. So, but if he wanted to race me, well, it was all fair.
Absolutely, that's the kind of attitude that we like to see from teammates in any sim racing series. Well, capping off your season with a podium, John. How about next season, if and when it comes around? What are your thoughts on 2024, if you have any to share?
Probably a different class. Like, these cars are fun, but they're just ruthless when you just overdrive it a tiny bit. There's no way of catching it. Maybe the 86s or TCRs or something like that, something, mix it up a bit, but yeah, I'll have another crack. We'll see how we go.
All right, interesting suggestion indeed. Well, before we let you go, John, anyone you'd like to thank for your result tonight?
Well, Dino, we were talking about that, and Dino said he'll read the sponsors out for the team. Just want to thank Dino. He didn't run into me, and I sort of kept the gap there enough, but just to the team, Black Hawk Motorsport, and all our sponsors, which, like I said, Dean's going to read out. Big thanks, and the paint job and the race suit and everything looks really good. So,
Fantastic stuff. Thanks for joining us, John, and congratulations once again on P2.
Thanks very much.
Well, John Bradshaw with a fantastic fight up through the field. And I guess, Bo, now it leaves us to have a chat to Dean Powell, not only third on the road, but our driver of the day.
Yep, absolutely. And a deserving driver of the day, mate. Welcome to the podium. Of course, the second of two Black Hawk Motorsport cars as well. How'd you find that one? Of course, quite a long race at Phillip Island, heading into the darkness. How'd you find fatigue and the general battle with your teammate there as well?
I had a really good run. The cars really suit the track, and it was awesome fun. Fatigue, it got a bit warm towards the end. When I was catching John, I thought, I'm in with a sniff here, but every time I get close to him, he just sort of gapped me a little bit, or in the pits, he'd gap me. But yeah, it was really, really good fun. We managed to miss the big carnage at turn 1, which really helped and set us up for the race. So yeah, it was good to see 2 Black Hawk cars on the podium as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys definitely had a fairly good strategy, it seemed like. It looked like you guys had every sort of option covered off and everything. How much preparation went into this race tonight?
I'll be honest, I only started cutting laps about half an hour before the server went up. So I actually thought for some reason I had in my head that the last round was it. So I kind of, just misjudged this week altogether. And wasn't until late last night that I realised it was on. And I went, oh, bloody bugger, I need to get in and do some laps. So, but yeah, just life got in the way and managed to get on about half an hour before the server went up. So, but yeah.
Nothing like a little bit of a last minute practice, I guess. We've all been there, and sometimes it pays off pretty well. How do you rate the season as a whole? Of course, you've had some strong results here and there, but you've also had some unlucky moments as well. How do you find what I imagine is probably one of your first seasons in an LMP3 car?
Yeah, it's the first time I've driven it. So, I've had some really good runs, and then some tracks I just really struggled on. Made a few errors, and just sometimes it's a bit tricky to drive. But the more I've driven it, the more comfortable I feel, and like I was sort of able to just jump in tonight and do a really good job. So, it's the more I've done, the better it's got. So.
Yeah, well, fantastic, mate. Before I let you go, you have been thrown under the bus by your teammate to list off some team sponsors for us.
Yes, so just want to thank all the guys at Black Hawk for the support that they give us. King Race Designs, True Seal, RSW Graphics, Prestige Cinematography, some of the best photos you'll see on the sim. West Orange Motors, also big shout out to Burnsy who did us a new suit and a helmet just for this weekend. And then thanks Rich and Chris for putting on the series, and you guys for doing an awesome job with the broadcast.
Oh, thank you very much, Dean. Of course, our driver of the day as well. So got some goodies heading your way. But awesome. If we are to see a season 2 of the Südspeed Sportscar Series, hope to see you there, buddy.
Yeah, I'll be there for sure. Been an awesome series. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Dean. Awesome to have a chat to you. Of course, our driver of the day. That was our podium for tonight's race, but we do have one more interview because Mr. Reese Gardner, our series organizer, Richard Mayer, has joined the comments box.
He has indeed. G'day, Richard. We've had plenty of chats with you both before and after these broadcasts, but man, what a series this has turned out to be. You know, for Südspeed to come in and organise a series and it out of nowhere to become one of the highlights of the year for me and Bo, certainly fantastic. How do you think the series went from your perspective?
Yeah, thanks, Reese. And yeah, thanks, Bo, and obviously Jay, you know, for the production behind the scenes. You guys did a great job. And, you know, my business partner, Chris, and best mate, Chris, we sort of started this from nothing and thought we'd kick it off with a bit of a league to try and build the awareness for the brand and build a bit of a community. And we're just super grateful that it's turned into what it has. You guys seem to have enjoyed yourself. It seems like all the drivers had a lot of fun. There were some ups and downs, but a lot of good competition, and we're just thrilled with how it turned out.
As you should be. And I suppose another thing that really set this series apart was its iRating cap. And I realised that there was potentially a bit of criticism for bringing the iRating cap in, but I think we're all in agreement in the comms box here. It worked out for the best because we saw a bunch of drivers that we don't usually see much of in many of the top series that we broadcast, absolutely fighting it out and showing what they can really do.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the iRating cap's a bit of a contentious point. I think we kind of stole the idea from a few other leagues that we'd seen implement an iRating cap, and it's worked and it hasn't worked depending on how you look at it. I think it's kept the field pretty close. There's always a few outliers that are pretty quick and maybe don't do as many official races. But for the most part, I think the competition was really good. And, you know, my favourite part of the whole season was sort of looking from about P3 or 4 back to about P10 and seeing so many good battles. And I think really that's where the cap has sort of paid dividends, I guess. We've got a few different ideas for next season. There probably won't be a cap, or there might be some Pro-Am classes, but, you know, we're happy with how this has turned out. We learned a lot. And, yeah, great racing, you know, in that mid-pack, which I think everybody found exciting.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, regardless, Richard, if there's any more thanks that you'd like to give or any plugs, then now is the time.
Oh, look, yeah, cheers for that. Look, we're just super grateful. Like I said, Chris, my business partner, gets to do all the design and the fun stuff. I just kind of do all the other bits and pieces to make this happen. But, you know, thanks to everybody who competed in this series and helped sort of build this up to what it is now. It's only been a few months and people are starting to know who Südspeed are and what we do. So obviously all the competitors are really key. You guys in the comms box, Bo and yourself, and Jay behind the scenes. All the content creators and streamers who've helped us as well, and spread the word. And everybody who's bought gloves, obviously, that's what we do. We saw a bit of an opportunity to make a nice pair of gloves and sort of build a bit of a brand. I know, there's not much here for us down under in Australia and New Zealand, so that's sort of what gave us the idea. So everybody who's participated in one way or another, we want to say a big thanks to. There'll be something happening in the new year, but we're going to take a bit of a break over Chrissy and take stock and maybe kick something off in February or March. But until then, we still have our Black Friday sale on, which ends in a couple of days, which you guys might have talked about earlier in the broadcast. So you can get 35% off gloves if you can. Use the code BLACK35, jump on the web, have a bit of a look. We like them, obviously, but we're a bit biased. But there's a few good reviews on the website too. Everybody seems to be pretty pleased. So for that, we are very grateful. And yeah, look, just thrilled with how everything's turned out.
And we're thrilled and grateful for you and your mate putting this series on as well, Richard. Big thanks to you and the rest of the team at Südspeed and In Race Control. And hopefully we'll catch you next year for more fantastic action.
Thanks again, mate. Really appreciate it.
That's Richard Mayer there, one of the guys behind Südspeed and behind this series, Bo, as we have the provisional championship standings coming out of this final round.
Yep, absolutely. And, they have had a little bit of chopping and changing in terms of the points, but the order has remained fairly the same, as Vandal does win the title by 108 points in the end. He, of course, was the dominating force early in the season. That's only fitting. He ends the season with a win and the championship as well. But kudos has to be given to Brandon Groch. It was a great run at the title around that middle phase of the season. He gave it everything he had, and if it wasn't for that lap 1 incident, what a fight it could have been. Absolutely awesome to see those guys scrap it out, and I hope to see them back in any future versions of the Südspeed Sportscar Series. But our championship top 3 does get rounded out by Peter Smith, who also had some great results. But Reese, before we cancel or head off for the night, what was sort of one of your highlights for the Südspeed Sportscar Series first season?
Oh, God, there's so much to pick from, isn't there? I think going all the way back to the first round at Donington in general, we had some fantastic racing. We had the great introduction of the series, and it really set the stage for how things were to go from there.
It absolutely was. I remember we ended up thinking, how's this season going to go? I'm not quite sure. And then I think in race 2, we had 3 wide out of the penultimate hairpin.
Yep.
So it sort of set the scene very much that this is going to be a hard-fought race or a season. And I think for myself personally, I think Algarve was quite a strong point as well. I loved seeing those battles down the back straight. Those awesome passes around the outside at that final quarter. I challenged a few people to do it, and they came out strong with some great results. But from us, that's 7 rounds down. Unfortunately, none to go. But you heard it from Richard. There are plans for upcoming seasons. Nothing to announce right now, but keep an eye on the Südspeed Discord. Make sure you're in there for all the latest updates, because if there is a season 2, I might try and get it out of this comms box, because the racing looks absolutely phenomenal. A big thank you to Reese for joining me in the commentators booth for all of these races. It's been an absolute pleasure to be back in the commentators booth. And of course, commentary wouldn't be possible without Jay Kennedy behind the scenes as well. Richard and the team behind Südspeed, it's been an honor, and thank you very much for this season. But from us here at SimSpeed TV, ladies and gentlemen, it is good night.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. visit iRacing.com.